Hi, Christina. Hi. So we've got quite a few people online. So we're online with quite a few different platforms. So far, if you're watching me online, so first of all, I want to say hi to the guys on the webinar as well. We're a little bit early. We've got about 2 minutes in. I thought I'd just say a quick hi, especially to the guys on Facebook. If you're on LinkedIn, you can catch us on LinkedIn as well. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. So we're live across quite a few different platforms, and if you used to actually see what I'm seeing right now, we've got about 5 or 6 different screens where it's all pointing at me, and it's quite surreal actually. But either way, I just wanted to say a quick hello before we go live to all the guys on the webinar. And tonight what we're going to be discussing is why now is the perfect time for you to get started rent to rent. So I've been pushing this quite heavily over the last couple of weeks because I firmly believe that now, if any time, is a perfect time for you guys to get in contact directly with landlords and showing them why you're the best bet for their property right now. So we did a webinar last week. We got a fantastic response off it. But some people came to me and said, Arsh, okay, I liked what you're talking about, but we need to see some examples of what you're doing. So tonight's session very much has got lots of sessions, lots of examples in there, properties that I've got on personally. And what we've actually focused on is one street in particular where I've got 6 properties, and I'm going to show you the 6 properties that we've got, how we've negotiated a deal with the landlord, how much rent we're paying, how much is currently generated, and what the kind of cash flow level is on those 6 properties alone. You've got to bear in mind that we've got a portfolio of circa around 45 rent-to-rent properties, so in that respect, I'm showing you a very small percentage of the amount of deals that we've got in that portfolio. So let's get moving on. So tonight is very much, I want you to give me a quick hi, let me know that you're watching, give me a quick wave and all that kind of jazz, especially if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube and Instagram. So we're going to be online for approximately 60 to 90 minutes, no longer than 90 minutes. I want you to enjoy the rest of your Sunday. So let's get moving on. So first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time this evening. I appreciate that. Time is one of the most precious commodities, and I guarantee that's going to be the best investment that you're going to make. So I'm going to give you an opportunity. This worked extremely well for us last week. So I'm going to give you an opportunity for one of you to win a prize, and that prize is going to be worth circa £1,500. So the prize is that if you're watching on the webinar, you'll see that all my social media posts, so you've got my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and LinkedIn. If you're already, I want you to share this video as many times as you can so we can get the maximum reach for this video right now. So if you're watching it, share it and let other people know of the content that we're going to be sharing tonight. And what we'll do, I've got Christina watching this as well. I've also got my wife watching this as well. And we'll pick a person at the end of the session. We'll pick a person at the end of the session as to who's going to win that prize. So one person, sorry, Sam has said that it's not exactly very clear. I'm going to see if I can make it slightly clearer for you, Sam. Bear with me a second. So let's get moving on. Hopefully that's a little bit better for you. I'll try. Remember, if you're on LinkedIn and the social media, we're going to be online for around 15 minutes. And for you to get onto the full session, you've got to click the link, which is either in the actual title or the comments link below. So you're in the right place if you want to simply follow a system that brings you in more deals. You're in the right place if you've hit a brick wall and you want to start growing your rent-to-rent business. You're actually in the right place if you're looking for some fresh ideas to secure more deals. So if you like the thought of that, give me a quick hell yes, and let me know that you are definitely in the right place. Sorry, I've just lost, there we go. So I just lost my cursor, we're back. So fantastic. Okay, so interesting. So let's keep moving forward. So why should you listen to it? So who is Arsh Ellahi? I appreciate there's lots of people out there talking about rent to rent, but what we're going to actually be concentrating on tonight is a person who is an Amazon best-selling author of a book called Boom Bust and Back Again. And as the title suggests, it's never always an easy journey. I've been in property now, well, I've put on there 16 years, but in actual fact, it's 18 years full-time. I've been involved in property, you could say, the best part of 34 years, because I started in property, believe it or not, when I was 4 years old, which is a very young age to start. So it all started with my father, and he had a small portfolio, and over a period of time, we've grown that successfully and massively to a decent size, what I would consider a decent size portfolio. So I've been a franchisor of a letting agency. It's called Rent Me Now. So we've got a couple of branches across the country, and that's still continuing to grow. And in just over 2 years, we've built a rent-to-rent portfolio, which gives us a monthly cash flow of in excess of £30,000, and that is consistently growing. So that's a little bit about me and who we are and what we do. So remember, guys, if you're watching on social media, feel free to share the video. If you're watching with us on the webinar, feel free to add yourself to my social media, and let's get connected. So what is rent to rent? Now, I'm going to simplify it in very simple terms. If you don't know what rent to rent is, or I'll tell you what, if you don't know what rent to rent is, please feel free just to put in the comments box and say, you know what, Arsh, I'm not 100% sure what it is. I've heard lots of people mention it, so that I know roughly who we've got online and the kind of experience that we've got online. Do you know what rent to rent is or not? So in simple terms, it's a system that turns you into an expert property manager. So it doesn't turn you into a letting agency. We don't want to become a letting agency. What we are is pretty much taking control of someone's property. Taking control of someone's property. So having a quick look. So Mikel says not sure. Robert says kind of. Mark has very completely come in straight away and says, I'm a bit of a rookie. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that, because we've got to start somewhere. Now, the system that we're going to be talking about tonight is a system that gives the landlord everything that they want from property, which is guaranteed passive income plus a truckload of other must-have benefits. So we're going to be giving the landlord pretty much an easy ride. We're going to be giving them a guaranteed income plus all the other benefits that they would like from their property, as to the reason probably why they got involved in property in the first place. The system that we're going to be talking about also enables you to make passive income without actually owning a house. And this is one of the biggest plus points of rent to rent. And we're going to be showing you about the 6 properties that I've taken on, how they're income producing, how it's not cost me a single penny to get involved in them. And this system, what we're referring to tonight, is known as rent to rent. Now, does that kind of make it, we've kind of simplified it so that you kind of get a bit of an understanding. So what is rent to rent? In essence, you manage the landlord's property, similar to a letting agency, but you're not running around for a commission basis. Does that kind of make sense? We're not running around for a 10% plus VAT commission. You know, like a standard letting agency, you take a property to them, they'll say, well, we'll rent it out for £500 a month, and then we'll take out our 10% plus VAT, and then you'll get that amount, the net amount. Here, what we're actually doing is we're saying to the landlord, we'll guarantee to take the property off you for a certain period, whether that be 3, 5 or 7 years. You can take it off them for 1 year if you wanted to calculate your risk. And the way that you do it is that you say, well, you're going to get, let's say, £500 a month, and anything that we achieve in excess of that is then deemed as our commission, shall we say, or our commercial risk. So you give the landlord a guaranteed property income, which is a better deal than a letting agency. Because let's face it, a letting agency, if there's an issue with the property, they're still going to be calling the landlord and saying, Mr. Landlord, we've got a leaky tap, we've got a broken toilet, the tenant's moaning for this, that, and the other. And as a result, they will then, the landlord will still have to pay for that. Whereas with a guaranteed income, what you're saying to the landlord is, I'll take the property off you, I'll guarantee you the rent, I'll make sure that you're not going to get contacted with any maintenance bits and pieces. But however, this is all subject to negotiation, so I don't want you to get too bogged down with thinking, crap, okay, if I'm doing this, you know, how am I going to make this work? And then finally, you don't have to bother the landlord with maintenance issues, which is a better deal for them than a traditional tenant. So you're a better covenant for the landlord than a letting agency, because you're not charging them commission. You're a better covenant for the landlord than a traditional tenant, because you're not bothering them for maintenance and all the other bits and pieces like that. Does that kind of make sense so far? Right, so it is pretty much a 4-step process. So first of all, you rent the property on a single let basis from a landlord, which is pretty normal. So you take a house as a single let. You then rent it out on a room by room basis, on an individual basis, and then you rent out the room, turning it from one let into 4 or single lets. So let's just say that a 4-bedroom house got 4 bedrooms, it's got 2 reception rooms. You may turn one of the reception rooms into a bedroom, so you've now got 5 lettable rooms. And then you keep the one as a communal lounge. Then you still got the communal kitchen, you still got the communal bathroom. So there still are communal facilities. But that means that you've now turned the property into what is now, which is known as a HMO. Or if you don't know what a HMO is, it's a house of multiple occupancy. And as a result, you receive multiple rents, which out of that, you then pay the landlord, the rents, you pay the utility bills, and you bank the difference. That's it in a very simple 4-step process. And if you want to break it down further, just so that you know, initially you got a landlord, so you may be meeting a landlord who's in despair. So for argument's sake, you may be having issues with tenants, you may be having issues with maintenance, you may be having issues with letting agencies. You've got to remember that property is never always an easy journey. People seem to think that as a landlord, you buy a house, you put some tenants in, you're making an income, and then you shoot off to the beach and you go sit down and you relax. That's not how it happens. And if you're a property investor and you're watching this live, you know exactly what I mean, and you can probably relate to that. Whereas what we're doing is we're saying, you know what, guys, here you are. So let's just imagine that you're the landlord. I would approach you and say, hey guys, I understand that you've got vacant property. I want to know a little bit about who, why, and why it's vacant. As a result of that, we start discussing to see how you can benefit from me becoming your tenant or your managing agent. And as a result, it all kind of works very straightforward. I then take the property off you as a single let. I then turn it into a HMO. As a result, I've now got 5 or 6 different tenants in the property. Whether it's licensed or unlicensed is a completely different subject, which we'll be talking about shortly. So there are some kind of legislation and some regulation things that you need to take into consideration, and we'll go through those shortly. But as a result of turning it into a HMO, the income that you're generating is going to be far greater than the income that you're paying to the landlord, as the rent that you're paying to the landlord, and as a result, you're making profit and cash flow from a property that you don't own. So that is it in a nutshell. As a result, who wins? The landlord wins, because he's now got a guaranteed income for the next period that you've guaranteed. You win because you've taken a property on which you don't own, you're simply controlling, and yet you're making the same amount, if not the more cash flow than if you had purchased the property. And everyone's happy. Tenants have now, you could say that in essence, we're doing our bit for the government. The government is struggling with shortage of housing. We're now providing more housing in that location. There's certain things that we need to cover off. We're going to talk about shortly, which is licensed, unlicensed, Article 4 area locations. So these are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about. So what I'm going to do now is take the opportunity for the guys that are listening online. So whether you're on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, if you want to join the rest of the session, click the link which is in the comments or the title section, and you'll get to watch the rest of the session. So I want to say thank you very much for being online, and I will see you all very shortly. So the guys that are on the webinar, please stay there, and we'll keep moving forward with the session. So bear with me, guys. Let's keep moving forward. Right. Okay. Fantastic. So we're now live only with the guys on the webinar. Thank you for staying with me. So, in a nutshell, do you kind of get the basics of what we've been discussing on rent to rent? If you don't, if you want us to go through it, more than happy to go through it again. So, question is, what is rent to rent? You turn the property into, you take the property off the landlord on a single let basis. You then rent the room by the room. You then rent the property by the room. Turn the property into a HMO. If it's now, just so that you know, there's a couple of categories. It could be a license or it could be an unlicensed HMO. You will need the landlord's consent, and you'll need to make sure that you stay under the council legal requirement to license a HMO. In this way, you'll make more monthly cash flow than the landlord from a property that you don't own. So a couple of things that you've got to take into consideration, and we're going to go through some of the new legislation that's come out as of, if memory serves me correctly, if tomorrow is Monday the 1st of October, we've got new legislation coming out tomorrow. Hence why tonight's session is probably one of the most timely sessions that you will ever watch. So there's a couple of things. There's licensed and unlicensed HMOs. Now, before tomorrow, so as of today, you could take a single let property and anything up to a 6-bed HMO, you do not require planning permission for unless you're in an Article 4 area. Now, the one thing that you will need to do, and here's my disclaimer, you need to check with your local authority whether they operate in the Article 4 location. Now, before tomorrow, you could have created a 5 or 6-bed HMO on 2 floors and it would not have required a license. As of Monday the 1st of October, anything that is a 5-bedroom or more or 5-person HMO or more will require a HMO license, and it will have to adhere to HMO regulations, which means that it may require fire doors, it may require fire alarm, it may require it will require minimum room requirement size of 6.5 square meters. Now, these are all the things that landlords have probably been getting away with for a number of years. Now, as a result, with this new licensing coming into place, they're running scared. They don't know that they've got to put an application. They're worried about the property being substandard. They're worried about the rooms being too small, because before they've been running under the radar. The only, the one thing that I would say is that anything that's under a 5-person HMO is still running under the radar, and it will do so until further notice. Now, why is this an important time for rent to rent? Now, first of all, the one thing that you've got to say, now, I'm going to make something very clear here, is that it's all very great me sitting here and saying that owning a massive property portfolio is fantastic. And it is good in a way, because you've got to think that on a long-term scale, it's going to serve my children very well. However, one thing that I'm very aware of is the fact that at some point, all these mortgages and all this debt that we take on as property investors has to be paid back. Because in order for us to exit a property, or a property that we own, and when we say we own, we've either bought with cash or we've got a mortgage, we've put a deposit, we've gone off and done the mortgage application, got the surveyor, At some point, in order for us to realise that gain, or in order for us to exit that property, we have to sell that property. Which means that during that whole process, we have to make sure that it's generating income in order for us to pay the mortgage, in order for us to pay for letting agents, maintenance, blah, blah, blah. Which means that it can still be a stressful transaction. Now, the one thing that I like about rent to rent is that there is no mortgage. The second most important thing that I like about rent to rent is that you dictate the terms, which means that when you purchase a property, the person that dictates the terms is the mortgage company. Now, you can't turn around to the mortgage company and say, "Hi, Mr. Mortgage Company, I want to purchase this property, but I want you to give me a mortgage-free period of 3 months." They're going to say, let's just use a person, "Hi, Sapphire, thank you very much for asking us, but why don't you politely get lost? And we'll go and deal with someone that wants to adhere to our terms." Now, the beautiful thing with rent to rent is that when you're dealing with a landlord, you can negotiate as many terms as you want. So you could ask for a rent-free period. You could say that you don't want to pay a deposit. You could say that they may be responsible for some maintenance. You may be responsible for other things. So the beautiful thing with rent to rent, it is all subject down to negotiation. And the better you are at negotiating, the more terms that you will get in your favour. Does that kind of make sense? I've taken on properties where I've had a 12-month rent-free period because the property required substantial investment. I've taken on properties where I've not paid a deposit. I've taken on properties where the landlord has paid the maintenance. I've taken on properties where we've done a profit share with the landlord. So every deal is taken on an individual negotiation basis. Now, why now? Again, the Chancellor is consistently changing their minds. Now, with Brexit, no one knows what's going to happen. Are we going to have a deal? Are we not going to have a deal? Where are we going to go? What's going to happen with interest rates? What's going to happen to the economy? No one knows. Now, the beautiful thing with rent to rent, that because you don't own the property, as a result, you could put in break clauses so that if it's not working for you, you could simply hand it back to the owner. Whereas with a mortgage company, if you wanted to get out of that property, if it's not working for you, you have to sell that property. How long does it take to sell a property, do you know? With the best will in the world, it could sell within the day. Worst case scenario, you could still be sat here 12 to 24 months later, still trying to sell a property. And within that period, are you going to keep it occupied? Are you going to keep it vacant? If it's vacant, are you still going to have to pay the mortgage? You're still going to have to pay the council tax. There's lots of things that you have to take into consideration. The other thing that's going to create uncertainty over the next few years, shall I say, is the fact that we're still on a very low interest rate. At some point, this has to increase. Now, the beautiful thing with rent to rent is that you can fix your rent for the whole period during that. So I've got properties that I've taken on a 7-year basis where the rent is fixed and capped for that whole period. So Daniel's come in straight away with a question. I'll try and answer questions as we go along. Is rent to rent individual contracts with the landlord? Yes, it is. And then here's the one that has been pretty much what I would say. There's two final nails in the coffin. Now, the first final nail is Section 24. So if you don't know about Section 24, I'd probably get you to start reading up on it. So this is what has been considered as like Section 24 of the Finance Act 2015. It's been coming in for a long time. Now, previously, and I've done a bit of an illustration on the screen here. Previously, if we look at the third column down where it says mortgage costs, prior to 2015, 2016, the mortgage costs could have been redeemed as a capital allowance. So that meant that we could use that as a capital expenditure in our accounts. Now, going forward from 2020 to 2021, that is not going to be allowed to happen, which means that your mortgage costs, which means that you're going to be shown to be generating more income, which is then going to push you into a higher tax bracket very early on. And the whole reason for it is to get people to be pushed into a higher tax bracket. As a result, you pay more tax, and as a result, it works very well for the government. As a result, they want more landlords to start selling up, giving more housing stock for first-time buyers. But the one thing that the government haven't taken into consideration is the cost of rising, the cost of living is increasing. However, the cost of the wages and the inflation has not increased. So therefore, how are these people going to be able to survive or rent or save a sufficient deposit to purchase the property? So we'll keep moving on. So Abid, I appreciate you've got a question that's just come in. We'll answer it during the course of the day, during the course of the session. So the final nail in the coffin is Monday, the 1st of October 2018, and it's a significant date. Now, if you're on social media, if you're in some of the HMO groups, you're in some of the other property groups, you'll see landlords and property investors scouring around. Probably tonight is the part where they're going to be in there. Now, I know a guy called the HMO Daddy. He's been scouring around for the last month, filling in HMO application forms, because anything that's now up to a 5-bed HMO, sorry, a 5-bed HMO, so anything under a 5-person HMO now requires a license. Before, you could have had a 20-bed HMO on 2 floors and it would not have required a license, because it would have had to meet the criteria of 5 or more people on 3 or more floors, and it would have had to have ticked both of those boxes of criteria. Now, the criteria is if it's got 5 or more people in, regardless whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 20 floors, it will require a license, which means that you've then got to submit an application to the council. You've got to pay a fee, you've got to attach all your certificates, you've got to ensure that the property is fit for its purpose, you've got to make sure that the rooms are of a sufficient size, and they've got to come out and inspect it. And it really has scared landlords left, right and centre. And if you're on social media, you'll see people extremely scared of this. So now is the time for opportunity for especially entrepreneurs. Now, I'm going to talk about why rent to rent is important. So, can you, first of all, the one thing I should ask you guys is, do you see the opportunity? Or are you still thinking, well, I still don't understand why this is going to be a decent opportunity for us? You know, by all means, feel free to let me know. Can you see the opportunity? Can you see that landlords are going to be literally almost tripping over themselves to say, here you go, guys. If you're prepared to take on the property, if you're prepared to actually bring the property up to HMO standard, you know, here it is. You know, if you can guarantee me a 5 or 7 year rent, take it off me. And you'll see, you know, the one thing I will say to you is don't take a property on if it doesn't fit the criteria. If the rooms are less than 6.5 square meters, what are you going to do with it? Let's face it. So can you see the opportunity? The opportunity is massive if you're a real entrepreneur. Now, why is rent to rent important? Now, I've categorized it into 5 different sections. So we've got speed, low risk, no deposit required, reoccurring income, and the no excuses way to invest in property. So let's go through it. So speed, straight away. There's no waiting on solicitors. There's no surveyors. There's no lawyers or their lawyers. How many times have you had to do a deal where you're buying a property and the solicitors are holding up the transaction? I've got easily the best part of 100 cases going through live at the moment. So as you know, some of you may know if you're on my email database system that we send out deals every day and we get deals sent out every day and we sell deals every day. The biggest bane of the whole process is finding a decent solicitor that can go through the process quickly and efficiently. The beautiful thing with rent to rent is that deals can be done at the speed of a handshake and a signed contract. I've been into properties previously where I've literally just walked in, we've had a chat, we've been around the property, and the landlord says, when can this happen? How quickly can this happen? And I've walked out of that meeting with the key of the property. I've done it so many times. And the beautiful thing with rent to rent is that you can grow your portfolio at the size of your ambition, which means that you can do this at your own pace and a pace that's comfortable for you. Now, if you're anything like me, I like to take on loads of properties, as many properties as I can when I can. And that's just because of me. And, you know, with all due respect, that's probably because of the size of the portfolio that I have. I've got people in place. I've already got tradespeople. I've got maintenance people. I've got lettings teams that can do that. So all I do is literally acquire the property. I take it back into the office, say, guys, here's the keys. Here's the address. Now go make it happen. So I don't really get involved anymore on the nitty-gritty side where we're trying to find tenants or the advertising. I've got an office and I've got systems in place that does that all for me. Now, the second part of it is cost. Beautiful thing about rent to rent is that dependent on your negotiation skills, you could get away with not paying a deposit. More importantly, it's a no excuses way to invest in property. The reason why I say that is because previously, if you're trying to buy a property, your excuses may have been, I haven't got the funds, or I don't know where to look, or I don't know how, or I don't know, should I be doing this? I'm worried that if I buy the property, it's not going to work out for me. Now we've crossed out all those excuses, because if the property doesn't work for you, guess what? There's your objection. Now let's answer it. If it doesn't work out for me, we hand it back. I haven't got the funds to do it. Guess what? You don't need funds to do it if you're shit hot on your negotiations. You simply pay for the refurbishment if the property needs refurbishment and possibly the furniture. But a lot of the times, the property comes partly furnished. If the house comes unfurnished, there's, again, down to your negotiation, you could put in there that potentially you will want the landlord to pay for part of the furniture. They may say to you, sorry, I'm going to just use an example. They may say, Vanessa, get lost. You take the property as it is. And, sometimes that may be the response. Okay, so let's keep moving on. Vanessa's asked a question, and I'll come back to it shortly. So when we talk about low risk, this is the part I love. Because you don't own the property, house prices don't affect you. Because you don't own the property and you've got no mortgage on the property, interest rates don't affect you. Because you don't own the property and you have no intention of owning the property, it's easy to analyse the right property by researching the tenant demand. And can you just give you a bit of a heads up here? Finding the tenant demand is very simple. You speak to letting agents operating in that location. Now, where do you find letting agents in that location? You go to Spare Room, you go to Gumtree, you go to Rightmove, you find out which agents are operating in that location. Say, guys, I'm about to take a property on. What's your experience in this property? Have you let something? Have you done something? Have you found that it works really well? Have you got a list of tenants waiting? And the success only requires your focus and determination. Now, one thing I will say to you is that don't expect to just take a property on and say, guys, okay, hand it over. Once you're starting, it's gonna require your focus and your determination. If you want someone to do it all for you, it's like starting any business. When you start a business, it requires your time. It requires you to understand the systems and the processes so that you can get it all set up correctly before you hand it over to someone else. So that's one thing I will say to you. Okay, so here's a question. Here's a great question, and I hear this all the time. So, Philip, thank you so much for bringing this in. I was waiting for this question. So, if a property meets a HMO required criteria, then the landlord will keep for themselves, surely. And if it's not, say that the room is less than 6.5 square meters, then we can't make it a HMO. If it's a viable house under HMO, then the landlord will keep it. I understand we can turn single lets into HMOs if suitable. Now, Phil, that's a fantastic question. Now, Phil, one question I'm going to ask you straight away is that do you receive my emails that we send out every day? Okay, so Phil says yes. Now, how many emails? So just give you an example. This week, I think it was on Thursday or maybe even Friday this week, we sent out a ready-made HMO in Luton. Now, that property is ready-made. It's got fire doors. It's got fire alarm. It's pretty much fully furnished or partly furnished, if memory serves me correctly. Now, why would the landlord give that to me? Think about this. Why would the landlord give that to me? He could do it himself. He could generate the larger rents. What makes me so special? Now, the question is, so Philip says, actually, quite a few. I see quite a few deals that you're sending me. Yeah, okay. So the beautiful thing is when we meet the landlord. Now, one thing that you never understand. Now, like I'm speaking to you on this webinar now, I don't know what's going on in your personal lives on the other side of this screen. Some of you may have fantastic lives, fantastic families. For that, I applaud you. Others may be going through some financial difficulty. Others may have got properties in the background that are poorly performing. Others may have had issues with tenants. Others may have issues, life issues. Some people may be looking to emigrate. Some people may be going through marital difficulties. Don't automatically assume that everything is rosy. I can give you example after example after properties that I've taken off landlords where I took a 8-bedroom HMO, which was brand new and fully furnished off a landlord. And the landlord said, you know what, you came at such a perfect time because I've just finished the property. I haven't even tried marketing it yet. And it made me consider it. I think, well, why is he giving it to me? Admittedly, sometimes I ask a question. And he goes, I'm a mortgage broker. He goes, I'm far too busy with my business day role to be able to run around after tenants and after letting agents. If you're prepared to guarantee me a rent for 7 years and I don't have to do a single thing, I'm prepared to talk. We started negotiations. He wanted £2,500 a month. I started negotiations so I think off memory it was around £1,200 a month. And we negotiated in the middle, and I think I'm paying circa £1,600 to £1,700 a month. That's an 8-bedroom, brand new, fully furnished. Every room's got its TVs. Every room's got leather goods in, leather beds, leather sofas in the communal lounge, and it was completely untouched. And believe it or not, guys, I'm going to let you into a little secret. I actually found that. I'll give you one little tip here. I found that online, literally online, and I found it on the planning portal. He applied for planning permission. I wrote to him as a result saying, you know, what's your intention after I understand that you got planning permission granted? What's your intention now? And as a result, we arranged a meeting. I went round and we got on really well. I took his keys off him there and then. Does that kind of make sense? Now, when we talk about low risk, remember, with rent to rent, you do not own the property. Unless you're going to put in an option to purchase, which then becomes a lease option, you do not own the property, which means that you're simply controlling it and you're making the most of that asset in your control. Now, let's look at 6 of the largest companies in the world right now. Instagram, Uber, Airbnb, Alibaba, Netflix, and Facebook. These are all companies that actually don't own any assets. Instagram sells no cameras, but is the most valuable photo company. Uber, largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. Airbnb, largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate. Netflix owns no actual rights to any of the programs. Alibaba is the most valuable retailer, has no inventory. And Facebook is the most popular media provider, but creates no content. So you could say that you are sufficiently a hybrid version of any of these companies on this screen right now. So Phil says, do you ever take rent to rents for turning them into service accommodation? Absolutely. I personally, being completely 100% honest with you, I've never ventured into service accommodation, but I've found hundreds of properties that you can take on rent to rent. Now remember, with rent to rent, you don't just take on houses. If service accommodation is your angle, you can take on flats. If commercial to residential is your angle, you can take on office buildings, you can take on industrial estates. Whatever you decide to rent, as long as you've got an angle for it, you can do a rent to rent on it. Does that make sense? You could do a rent to rent on a commercial unit and rent it off the landlord at a set rent, and then rent it out to another industrial operator at a higher rent and walk away with just making money in the middle. Give you an example. I took a single let off a landlord. I rented it directly without spending a penny on it to a housing association, and I'm giving the landlord £550. They're renting it off me for £1,500 a month. So I'm walking away with the best part of £1,000 without doing a single thing on it. And I took it off the landlord for 5 years. The housing association took it off me for 5 years. So if you want to work the figures on that, I'm generating approximately 12 grand a year over 6 years. That's 60 grand of income for a property that I've not spent a single penny on. And you can do this yourself all over the country. So you don't necessarily have to run it as a HMO if you don't want to. There are other companies that will take them off you on a long-term basis. I've done a rent-to-rent previously where I've taken it off a landlord. Now another person, because I've got it at such a good rent, I rented it to someone else on a rent-to-rent basis. So it's almost like a rent-to-rent squared. So the renter, then they've turned it into a HMO. So the rent comes in from the HMO to the person that I've rented it to. They pay me the rent. I take my bit out and I pay it back to the landlord. So it all depends on how efficient or how creative you are with the property. Now, if you're really going to go for it, you could, within a 12-month period, you could take up to 6, maybe even 12 houses. You know, it depends on what deposits, etc., what you're negotiating. But if you're to do it logically, you take one on in month 1. In month 3, you take on another. In month 5, you take on another. In month 7, you take on another. Month 9, you should have about 5 houses. By month 12, you should have around 6 houses. And if each generates a minimum of circa £500 a month, by month 12, you should be generating, or you should be netting 3 grand a month, which is 36 grand a year, which is the equivalent to a UK-sized salary. So here's how the rule. It's a rule of 5. So when you turn a property into a HMO, the way that I look at it is that room 1 pays the rent, room 2 pays voids and buffer, room 3 pays the utilities, room 4 pays the council tax, room 5 plus should be profit. So if you've got a 6-bed HMO, room 5 and 6 should be the profit. So that's the kind of calculation that you should be looking at. Okay, so here's a question that I'll throw in right now. So Phil has asked a question. Goes, Arsh, under what conditions can they break the contract apart from you don't pay them or you don't abide by the normal council HMO legislation? Now, okay, so the way that I do it, Phil, is that I try and do it whereas I can break it at any point, giving them either 1, 3, or 6 month period notice period, but providing that I'm performing my end, they can only give me notice if I have broken a clause such as I've not kept the property in good order, I've not paid the rent, I've not adhered to HMO legislation, etc. So if they decide to try and sell the property, I always put in there that they've got to give me the first option to purchase. I've got lots of terms in there that I try and get them to adhere to secure. They can't just turn around to me. So I don't do. The one thing that I'm going to make sure is that if I took the property into HMO, I'm not going to do all the work in month 1, and then in month 2 they give me notice, because let's face it, it's not financially viable for me to do that. So I make sure that if they're going to think that they're going to try and give me notice out of a 7-year period, I've got to make sure that I definitely get all my money back that I've put into the property, plus an income from it, before they can even give me notice. Okay. Can they actually break it if they want to sell it, even if you can't afford to buy it? They can't break it if they're trying to sell it, because they have to adhere that they have to acquire, almost like acquire your permission before they sell it, because you've got a vested interest in that property. So I'm going to give you 6 examples. So these are 6 properties that I've got on. So there's 2 streets here in Wolverhampton around Whit Marines. So there's 6 properties on these streets, and they're adjoining streets, and I'll take on as many properties as I can in these locations, because every time we take a property on, they let pretty much straight away. So here's a property. So some of these properties that I've taken on were ready-made HMOs. Some of them were not. Now the first one that we took on was a 6-bed, what was a 4-bed house. We had to turn it into a licensed 6-bed HMO, so we spent some money on it. But in order for us to accommodate that, we had to get a rent-free period. So we give the landlord £550 a month. We've now got 6 tenants in there paying £300 a month, which is £1,800 a month. And then after the rent to the landlord and the utilities, remember, I haven't put a management charge in here because I own a letting agency, so it doesn't cost me anything to do that. So the net cash flow on that is £890 a month. Now, another property on pretty much a few doors down. Once I take a property on in one location, I try and see if I can, if there's other landlords in that street or in that location, I see if I can try and tap them up in order for me to get a number of properties in that location. So it makes it more viable from a management point of view to do it as many times as possible. Here's another one. This one was a 6-bed HMO. Again, we're giving the landlord £525 a month, and it's generating £1,835. Then the net cash flow is £950. Now, this one here is actually owned by a professional footballer. So with this one, it's a little bit different because the professional footballer, I helped him buy the property. We actually helped him refurb it, and then I took a 7-year lease off the footballer. So he's getting £700 a month. And as a result, we're now getting a net cash flow of £800 a month. One a few doors down, so that footballer's house was there. One a few doors down. As you can see, the same kind of style of properties. As you can see, I try and keep the similar style of properties. Here's one that I'm generating net cash flow of £1,000 a month. So as you can see, because of the same style of properties, where we're getting roughly around 6 bedrooms. It is a licensed. You can see it's a 3-story property, so it's a licensed HMO. Here's another one. I've probably had this one the longest. I reckon we're in year 6 or something on this one now. And you know, it's been good. We've had, admittedly, in this one we had 1 or 2 bad tenants. We inherited 4 bad tenants when we first took the property on. We slowly had to squeeze them out. When we say squeeze them out, every time a tenant left, we made sure that we put better tenants in, and it's working extremely well. And the beautiful thing, you know, as I said earlier, talking about pain and motivation. This landlord, this landlord had 4 bad tenants that not paying rent, so we gave them a guaranteed rent, which meant that he's getting more now than what he was previously getting, and it works extremely well. And then here's the one that probably the youngest one that we've got. I think we're still in, the first year, maybe the first 6 months of this one. Believe it or not, we had to give the landlord more on this one than we did on a 4-bed. But I didn't mind because I knew that we've got quite a few on this street. We've turned this into more of a boutique hotel, which means that we've done it really high end. We've done really high end. We've managed to get a decent rent-free period out of the landlord on this one. And as a result, we've now got 4 tenants in there, which means that it's not licensed. It's 2-story. It won't require licensing even as of tomorrow. And we're still generating a net cash flow of £900 a month. But in order for us to make this work, we had to really go high end in a boutique style hotel, boutique style HMO. So really high end, TVs everywhere, extremely high end presence. So if you work on these properties alone, on these 6 properties, here's how it breaks down. All of them are on a 7-year. All of them are on a 7-year. On a 7-year term. Sorry, I'll keep looking through some of the questions as they come through. So based on these 6 alone, it generates just under £5,500 a month, which is equivalent to £64,680 per year. And if you were to tot it up over a 7-year period, that generates over £450,000 over a 7-year period. Now, I don't want you to take that last figure into consideration because, let's face it, you're not going to get £450,000 in your hands. That £450,000 is going to be accumulation over 7 years. Now, the way that I look at it is that £450,000 is going to help me either purchase more properties, or it's going to allow me to pay down debt on other properties. Now, the one thing that you've got to take away from this is that if I had actually gone out and purchased 6 properties based on a purchase price of approximately 200 grand in that location, 6 deposits of 25% deposit of 200 grand is 50 grand. So I would have needed 6 deposits, which would have meant that I would have required £300,000 in deposits alone. 6 lots of solicitors' fees for 6 unrelated transactions would have cost me around £1,000 each, which is 6,000. 6 mortgages. Now, bear in mind that if I put in a deposit of £150,000 on a 200,000 purchase, that's £150,000 mortgage. So 6 of those is going to be around 900,000 debt. Does that make sense? So 6 properties at 200 grand is 1.2 million. You put in a deposit of 300,000, 6 mortgages at 900 grand, which makes it 1.2 million. You've got to deal with 6 lots of mortgage companies, 6 lots of mortgage surveys, which I pretty much haven't put a figure on that, just put a pain in my backside, because then you've got to deal with 6 applications, 6 surveyors. You've got to make sure that they all come and value out properly, and then potentially 6 lots of refurbs at 10 grand each, which is 60 grand. So the total amount required if I were to buy this would be circa 366,000 plus the mortgage costs. Does that kind of make sense? Now, I don't know about any of the guys that are on the webinar, but has anyone got 366 grand that they want to go and spend on 6 HMOs? Or if I gave you the option of spending 366 grand to buy 6 HMOs, or if I gave you the option of taking control of 6 properties where you pay no deposits, where you had no intention to own any of the properties. So on the 6 properties that I showed you, no deposits were paid on any of the properties. I do not intend to own any of the properties, so I've got no intention of putting the option to purchase them. These properties will allow me to either purchase more properties from the cash flow that they generate, or pay down capital on my existing portfolio. The landlord will benefit from 7 years of guaranteed income and 0 hassle. And I continue to build a portfolio as quickly as I would like. So I can keep doing this, I can keep replicating it, because it's not capital intensive. All I do is I find a formula, and you can formulate this as quickly and as much as you want. So just give me an example. Good. So it can be formulated to the point of, when you take a property on, Here's paint that you use. Here's the carpet that you use. Here's the furniture that you buy. You buy the furniture from IKEA, aisle number, location number, so that you don't actually have to do it. You could just get a handyman and say, here's the property, here's what I want you to do, here's where you buy the paint from, here's the product code for it, here's where you go get the furniture from, here's the product code for it, bring it all to the house, make it all happen. So you don't physically have to do that. I know lots of people that do. Okay, so there's lots of questions that are coming through, so we'll go through these. I've planned approximately a 10-minute Q&A session at the end of this session, so we're going to go through this. So one thing I am going to talk about is that I am actually running a rent-to-rent masterclass. Now, the reason why I'm doing a rent-to-rent masterclass is because this is a perfect opportunity. If you've noticed that throughout the year, I get approximately around 10 requests a week, maybe more than that, saying, when's your next workshop? When's your next workshop? I run one earlier this year, and this is the only one that I'm running for the foreseeable future. The reason being is that I'm out there too busy acquiring properties to, in essence, talk about it, if that makes sense. So I'm a person that I'm a person that does it and then tells you about it. I'm one of the people, I'm not a person that's just been on a course and then going to try and regurgitate the stuff. I'm the person that's actually been doing it. I've been doing it for a number of years. So it's on the 20th and 21st of October. It's based in Birmingham. You can see all the details on this link here. So bit.ly/R2R success. Now, someone straight away has come in and says, can you copy the link? So I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to send it to pretty much send to all. I've just sent that link to everyone there if you want to copy that link. So here's what we're going to be covering over 2 days. Now stay with me, guys, because we've got a massive Q&A session. So it's going to be a 2-day course with me, showing me. So I'm going to be the person delivering it, showing you the fastest, cheapest, and most profitable way to set up your first rent-to-rent property. I'll be giving you a cost guide for furnishing and refurbishing your rent-to-rent portfolio. I'll be showing you loads of different ways to find landlords and how to also deal with agents as well. I'll be showing you how to elegantly persuade landlords to do business with you over anyone else or doing nothing. I'll be showing you how to find an endless supply of tenants so that you'll never have to worry about voids. I'll be showing you how to use the rent-to-rent profits calculator, which is an easy to use spreadsheet that instantly shows your profit from each property. Now, just so that you know, when I speak to a landlord, here we go, I'll give you a bit of a heads up. I've got what I call if I can find it, a rent-to-rent calculator, or what I call it the cash flow calculator. A lot of people call it the yes machine, or, depending on what you want to call it. So I can put in the figures pretty much on a rent-to-rent basis here. And this will pretty much tell me straight away, is it a yes or no? Does it work or does it not work? So there's lots of things that we put in. So we put in the rents that we could potentially achieve, what the costs are, and what it will work as. So as part of coming on the workshop, that's what you'll also get. So pretty much when you're speaking to a landlord, and you can use this, I always say to everyone, that especially my mentees, I say, use the spreadsheet. When you go to meet a landlord, say, guys, okay, I appreciate that this is what you're after for rent, but here's how I'm looking at it. From this point of view, this is how I'm looking at it. If I was to give you this, I can only charge this, and as a result, this is what I'm going to be making. Now, one thing, there's nothing wrong with showing the landlord what you're making. The reason why I say that, very simply, you want to make sure that the landlord understands that what they're offering is unsustainable. Now, if the landlord wants £1,000 a month and you're only ever going to generate £1,300 a month, and you haven't taken into consideration any of the other costings, the landlord will very easily see from your calculator that this guy's going to take the property on in month 1. By month 3, he'll be handing it me back because it's not working. So by using the calculator, we've effortlessly been able to negotiate a better rent. Now, you're going to get a recording of the entire course. All the courses that I always do are always recorded. And as a result, I'll also, for anyone that purchases the workshop, if you want to get started pretty much from tomorrow, I can actually give you the recording from the previous workshop so that you can start and get yourself a head start. You get all the presentation slides and all the pack. You get the contracts. Now, this is a beautiful thing. You get the contracts, which is the AST contracts, which you give to your tenants. I give you the management agreements and also the lease documents that I use with all my landlords. And these are these documents that we've had drawn up, we've used hundreds of times over. They've been through multiple solicitors. Solicitors don't have an issue with them. I'll give you the guarantor documents. I'll show you the tenant moving in form, and also the how to finish your property guide. I'll even show you the spreadsheet or the mind maps as to what we do, how we move them forward. I'll be giving you the documents so that if you are to start touting landlords and homeowners direct, the letters as to what you should be writing to them, and the landlord persuasion spreadsheet, which is the spreadsheet that we talked about, showing them exactly how much money they're making from their property. So let's just say a landlord says that I'm generating £500 a month. He hasn't taken into consideration any of the other costings out of that, the management costs and the maintenance costs. So as a result, there's nothing stopping you from going to them. So you say you're generating £500 a month, but after you've taken out the management, after you've taken out some maintenance, potentially some voids for the year, in actual fact, you're only generating this. Did you ever consider that? And that's your persuasion tool for you to get a better rent. You'll get your hands on our proven checklists. You'll get your, we'll even show you how to make your rooms stand out online. How to make your rooms stand out online. So I'll be showing you what to do, how to create dummy ads, so to make sure that you're taking the property on in the right location with the sufficient demand. I'll also be showing you what you should be doing in your adverts so that tenants will be calling you first. And we've only got, I think, off last count, we run this promotion last week. We've got 10 seats left. So to book your seat on the 20th and 21st of October, you can get it for £997. And all you're going to do is click the link below. And here's these are last slides. So here's some of the things that we're going to be covering on the day. How to identify and how to dominate your gold mine area. How to get in front of a large amount of landlords. How to create a high-end finish for a low-cost budget. And how to become legally compliant and avoid the pitfalls that others have been caught out with. And how to calculate the numbers and the profit on each deal. Now on day 2, now here's one of the most important things. It's all very well going off and finding all the landlords in the world, but if you don't know how to negotiate the deal, all those people will literally be saying, thank you for getting in contact, but I don't think you're right for me at the moment. So day 2 is all about negotiation and how to seal the deal. I'll be showing you the exact process for taking a prospective landlord from the first letter or the first phone call to a deal. I'll be showing you how to overcome objections, and we'll even be performing live interactions on the day. We'll be calling landlord live, we'll be calling agents live, and you'll learn the relationship selling model that we use on a day-to-day basis by understanding the buying patterns and the sales psychology that goes through when we speak to a landlord and an agent. And one thing that I always do with all the workshops that we offer is 100% money back guarantee. And here's how it works. At the end of the, if at the end of the first day you don't like it and you're completely unsatisfied or not satisfied, all you have to do is say so, you get your full refund. No questions asked, no hassles or forms to fill out. Now here's a couple of guys. So JC attended my workshop in Jan 2015. 1 year later, he had a portfolio of 18 properties generating a cash flow of just under £15,500 a month. His whole entire portfolio is in Croydon, South London. Now, I'm going to try and get a couple of the previous workshop mentees from earlier this year and also from previous years to come and talk to you on the workshop so that you can see not only am I doing it, but the guys. Now, one of the guys that I had on last week's webinar, a chap called Michael and Kazim. Now, they were a partnership. I started working with those guys in June earlier this year. Between June and now, they've got a portfolio of 7 rents. They're going to be with us on the 20th and 21st. So you can see the cash flow model as to what JC's done in Croydon. Here's a guy called Girish. Now, he's a full-time paediatric surgeon in Birmingham. He was on a very healthy salary. He lived for his weekends and holidays. And he has now got a portfolio of over 10 rent-to-rent properties within a very short space of time. But these guys are no different to you. All they've done is they've put their doubts aside for long enough to give this a try to no risks to them. And they've actually achieved unbelievable results faster than they dared to dream. Now, like I said, I know that I've got Kazim and Michael with me on the 20th and 21st. I've asked Girish. Girish said that he may be available. He's not sure whether he's going on vacation yet. I'll see if I can get some of the other guys that are going to be with us on the day too. Here's some of the other guys that have been on some of our rent-to-rent workshops in the past. So I've got loads and loads of testimonials that I can share with you, just so that you know that this is not a flash in the pan. Now, what I'm very cautious or conscious of the fact that not everyone can attend a workshop in person. Let's face it, life gets in the way. You may have kids on the weekend, you may have kids, you've got family and other things. Now, I'd love for you to attend in person and take advantage of the networking opportunity. However, if you can't get there in person because it is in Birmingham, you can actually live stream from the comfort of your own home, which means that like you're doing now, but you actually get to see me, and you can actually get to see me, you can actually get to ask questions, and the guys that will be monitoring the technology will come back and ask me the questions, and I'll be answering them for you directly. As a result, you'll also get the recordings. Anyone that buys the live stream or attend in person will also get the recordings from the session and also the previous session. However, if you can't attend a live stream and you can't attend in live as well, you can actually request to purchase the recordings, but you will have to do so before the event, and that is at the same price because you'll also get all the documentation that goes with it. So just imagine never having to do a day's work for anyone else for the rest of your life. No more boss, no more commuting, no more pressures, no more financial worries. And you can have a regular and reliable income from working less than a day a week. And all you have to do to learn these secrets, you grab the price, you grab it at what is a half price, because normally it's in excess of £2,000 for the weekend. All you have to do to get your place on the 20th and 21st is go to the link below. My plan is to help as many landlords as possible through the difficult time ahead, and I'm confident by the end of 2018, my rent-to-rent portfolio will give me an income of circa 50 grand a month. And you can do exactly the same when you use the same simple system. Now, remember I talked about Kazim. Kazim's here. Here's Kazim, who's going to be with us on the 20th and 21st of October. And his testimonial, I really like this. He goes, the man next to me is a genius. His approach in property is one of a kind, and I'm blessed to have him as one of my mentors. Thank you for sharing your toolbox with me. So I'll be showing you all the things that you need to do to get you moving. So I'm going to leave that up there now. We're going to have a bit of a Q&A session. So, Anurag has asked, do we need to have done this course to benefit from the deals you provide? No, just so that you know, Anurag, if you're not already on my database as a result of coming on this session, you would have provided consent for us to send you the deals. So you'll see the deals that we send out pretty much every day. Now, if we're sending deals out, that means that we're sourcing them, which means that you'll have to pay a sourcing fee for that process or for that procedure, which means that you only pay once you're taking a deal on. Now, one thing that I would say is that if you're confident, if you want to do rent to rent, why would you pay me a sourcing fee when you can go out and source them for yourself by learning how to do it for a fraction of the cost? Okay, so Neil has asked, what happens if the owner stops paying his or her mortgage? Are there implications to you? There's no implication. Well, when I say implications to you, you will still have an agreement on that property, which means that even if that person was to get repossessed, the building society will still have you as a. I've had one person. I had one person, Neil, that got repossessed, and we've now got an agreement on the same terms with the building society, because when they took it on, we were still in the property. Does that make sense? So Anurag says, yeah, okay, live for full-time job. Now, Anurag, remember what I said to you, there are different options out there for you. You can purchase the recording and you can also live stream. So again, don't use that as an excuse. Okay, so Enrico says, Arsh, how do you find these landlords? I'm using a couple of portals, sending text to property advertisers, but I've had no luck. Now, Enrico, one thing that you will say, he goes, local agents don't seem to understand the strategy. Now, Enrico, one thing I will say to you is that you're probably looking in all the right places, but you're not saying the right things. You've got to remember, there's certain trigger points that landlords will be comfortable with, and you've got to understand what you're saying and what you're offering. What is your unique selling point? What makes you different to a tenant? So in that respect, yes, you are looking in the right places, but you're definitely not saying the right things if a landlord hasn't said yes to you yet. Now, within that space of time within the workshop, I'll definitely be telling you exactly what you should be saying to a landlord. I'm not going to give you a script. I don't believe in a script. I like doing things as a relationship selling model. So I don't want you to say, hi, my name is Enrico. I would like to take your property off you. Landlords will switch off to that very quickly. Now, if you like me, I say, hi, Enrico. Yeah, my name's Arsh. This is who I am. This is what I do. You know, by the way, I understand that you got property vacant. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Blah, 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 blah. And we'll start walking through. And it is very much a conversation that we have. So Timur says, is it possible to build this up one day a week whilst working full time? Absolutely. Tim, you can actually do this in the evenings by approaching landlords direct. You don't have to actually do it as a full-time profession. I've got lots of people, believe it or not, I've actually got people abroad that do this in their spare time, and they've never seen any of the property that they've taken on. So Robert Spice has asked, can they still work in an Article 4 area? Yes, Robert. So it becomes a little bit more difficult in an Article 4 area because you can't take a single let and turn it into a multi-let without the benefit of planning permission. So you will have to go off and apply for planning permission. And let's face it, a landlord is not going to wait approximately 2 to 3 months for you to generate planning, or to gain planning permission. So your best course of action there is to probably approach the landlords that have already got underperforming HMOs. And there are lots out there. You know, let's face it, all you have to do is look on Rightmove and a place like Spare Room to see some of the substandard accommodation that's in that location that just needs a bit of TLC. So yes, it can work in Article 4 areas. So, okay, so Anurag says, how much time does it take to get the deal you offer going? Say Monday, I say I want it. When do I get control of the property? All depends. Anurag, like I said, after viewing, after you say that you want it, you then go and view it, make sure that you're happy with it, and then you can take control of it pretty much. If you, let's say that you came to me and said on Monday I want it, you view it on Tuesday, you could potentially have the keys for that on Wednesday, definitely by Friday. So David says, do you ever accept finder's fees on an incremental basis, e.g. monthly? No, David, is the honest answer. Because, can I put it bluntly? How often have you ever been to Asda, picked up a can of beans and said, do you mind if I take this can of beans home and I'll eat it today and I'll pay you for it over the next 4 weeks? It doesn't happen. Simply, and in the same respect, I offer a service, and the one thing I don't want to do is put you in contact with a landlord where you sign a contract with that landlord, and then as a result, I have to then take someone to court for the fee for a property that you've now got control of. Does that make sense? It doesn't work with me, unfortunately. Yeah, so David, just so you know, what you do with Argos is that you've got a credit agreement, whereas I wouldn't set up a credit agreement. First of all, because in order for me to give you credit, I would then have to be FCA regulated as almost like a money lender. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. So there's lots of questions coming through, by the way, guys. Neil says, do you teach how to identify the condition of the property? You don't want to end up with a lot of hidden costs of maintenance as a result of having to do repairs, which you could not identify when agreeing the rent to rent if you agree to deal with all the maintenance. Absolutely, Neil. So I'll be telling you what to look out for when you're going around, what to look out for when you go around the property. So having a look at, certain things, and go from there. Certain things. So, for argument's sake, if it's already a licensed HMO, has it got the fire doors in place? Has it got the thumb turn locks? Has it got the electrical testing certificates? Has it got the fire alarm certificates, etc., etc. So there's lots of things that you'll need to know about. So So Article 4, is it from a planning legislation? If so, what is called? It's called Article 4 Directive. So if you're looking to see, um, if you're looking to see if your town, your city, or your location is an Article 4 area, you have to type in, let's say, for argument's sake, Luton, Article 4 Directive, or you'll have to speak to one of the planners in that local area to understand whether you will need to set up, whether you need planning permission to set up a HMO in that location. So Carrie says, so you don't need to use a solicitor at all? Absolutely not. You know, the agreements that we've had drawn up have all been drawn up by solicitors. Now, you may get a landlord that says, I've got a solicitor that I wouldn't mind running my agreement through, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to do, so, okay, here's the agreement. Get your solicitor to look at it, just so that you know I'm not getting legal representation because I don't believe I need to. And if they want it, just say, just so that you know, your solicitor will probably charge you the best part of £500 to go through that agreement with you, and that's a cost that you will have to inherit, not me, because you're the one that's requiring that legal confidence. And 9 times out of 10, they won't instruct a solicitor. The agreements are very straightforward to the point. Okay, so Yugal says, what happens if you cannot fill the property with tenants? Now, one thing that you will do, Yugal, is that if you're quick off the mark, pretty much you could pull together some dummy adverts. So for argument's sake, you could put some dummy adverts out and start generating leads for landlords. Now, there's nothing stopping you from doing that tonight. You could create a dummy advert and you could start to generate a list of tenants who are looking for properties in certain locations. So as soon as you've got a property, you call up the tenant and say, guys, are you still looking? So if that's the case, I've got a property that may be of interest. So Vanessa asked a question. She goes, it's a bit extreme, but what happens if there's an accident in the property? Who's responsible? I imagine this is worked into the contract and insurance. Now, one thing I always say is that the landlord still insures the property. There's only, out of the 45 that I've got, I've only got one where I have to insure it, just purely because the landlord said that he couldn't find a sufficient cover for what we're after. And all we need really is HMO insurance. And we also ask to see a copy of the policy just to make sure that it's covered by HMO insurance. So we always get the landlord to insure the property. So they insure the bricks and mortar of it, and we don't insure any of the contents. The landlord, the tenants will have to insure their own contents. If you want to insure the contents, if you supply washing machine and stuff, that's stuff that you can do, yeah. So let's have a quick look. What else have we got? Is it the same cost to stream the course remotely? It is, unfortunately, Lynn. So the cost of the course is £997, whether you attend in person, whether you live stream it, or whether you just simply purchase the recordings. So just so you know, guys, we are becoming limited on spaces. So if you like the thought of it and you want to get yourself onto it, please do so. Okay, so a guy called Chu Tang has just come on and said, hi Arsh, I went on your webinar last Sunday and my business partner and I are interested in going on your rent to rent masterclass in October. I was wondering if you record the masterclass, can I attend it afterwards? Yes, so it will be recorded. So if you purchase the workshop, it is available to you. And you mentioned that if I sign up, I can bring my business partner for free. Is that still the case? And that's what I'll offer tonight as well. So if you come along, yes, I'll allow you to bring your business partner for free. So that kind of that 997 is for you plus your marital partner or your business partner. You can't just go off and pull someone off the street. Gok, sorry, apologies if I've not pronounced that correctly. How do you manage to get your utilities low for 6 tenants? I work on the basis of around £60 to £65 per head per person. So that includes council tax, water rates, electricity, gas, and broadband. And then if you've got other additional services in there, like cleaners and stuff, that will have to be added as an additional. So, okay. So Phil says, does the HMO license go in the landlord's name or does he apply for renewal? Now, this is one thing that is all up for negotiation, because if the landlord's already got a license in place, You could keep it with him being the owner, and then you being named as manager or the or the license holder. It is all up to depending on what you and the landlord decides to do. If you go off and get a new application, if you could, sorry, Vanessa says if you wouldn't mind going over my question. Vanessa, if you can send that question again, I'll go through it if that's okay. So if you want to go off and make sure that the license is definitely in your name, you'll have to obviously pay for that. If you don't, you can get the landlord just to amend it with some of the details with him being the owner. Does that make sense? Okay, so Senna said, I was told you can't apply for a HMO license if you're not the owner. Is that correct? Absolutely rubbish, Senna. How do you reckon I've got HMO licenses in my name for properties that I don't own? This, one thing that I will go through on the workshop is I'll be showing you how to fill out the application form. So there on the application form, you've got the owner. So there's a couple of people that can apply. The owner, you've got the license holder, and you've got the manager. So you'll have to put the owner's details, and then you'll have to put what you're interested in the property. So in that respect, you could either be the license holder or the manager. So Phil says, but who pays the license fees? How do you pay for how many do you pay for instance? Just so that you know, on all mine, I've agreed it where I pay the license fee, but I've worked that into my figures. But the easier I make it for the landlord, the greater the chances of me getting the property are much higher. So, okay, so Tanashi asks, how's the rent guaranteed? So, okay, so how's the rent guaranteed? So you've got to make sure that you're going to be in a position where you can fulfill that requirement. So whether you've got to make sure that you're going to be able to fill that property, or whether if you've got other income that you're going to be able to make sure that you fill the requirement. So just give me an example. One property that we're currently doing in the High Wycombe, the landlord the current person that's looking to take it on. They don't have other properties in the background, but what the landlord has asked them to do is get some form of insurance. So there is rent-to-rent insurance in essence, where the landlord, where you will have to take out for the landlord benefit, so that if you miss a payment, the insurance policy will kick in. There's lots of bits and pieces that need to be taken into consideration. So I wouldn't panic about it too much, but you'll only take a property on. You'll only take a property on if you can afford to, and you're going to be confident that you're going to be able to let it. Okay, so Vanessa says, it was just if the landlord hasn't got a license yet due to the changes tomorrow, would you request they apply with you as a manager? You're covering this. Okay, yeah, I was covering that now, so that's covered. Licenses are free in some areas. Has legislation changed recently? Majority, I would say, high 99%. Most places charge for licenses. So I think there were a couple of areas where licenses were free. I can imagine from tomorrow that's also changing as well. So, okay. Okay, so Daryl's asked a question, which is quite a common question. I know landlords have buy-to-let mortgages, but not HMO permission. How do you avoid the landlord breaching their mortgage terms? Now, one thing that we do, Daryl, is that we always put in our agreements to confirm that the landlord has sufficient insurance and also the sufficient mortgage product for that property to be used as a HMO. We can go off and ask for them to get consent. So there's lots of things that we ask the landlord to do. But in the same respect, one thing that we do is sorry, I was just going through some of the other questions. So one thing that we also do is that we also ask them to say, confirm that they've got that HMO mortgage in place. If not, they confirm in writing that they've got the correct consent in place. So Neil said, is a recording this webinar? There will be recording this webinar, and it will be sent to all the people who are registered on the webinar during the week. Okay, when you apply for a license, you can start renting, but what if it gets cancelled? It's very rare Google that a property license will get cancelled unless the property is not adequate or is inadequate in condition. So providing that the property, let's say it's a 6-bed HMO, it's got to make sure that you've got sufficient bathroom space, sufficient kitchen space, sufficient communal space, got to have the fire alarms, fire doors, emergency lighting, the room size has got to be sufficient size. So provided that you've ticked all the boxes, and remember on the HMO application form, it gives you a tick box, so it tells you exactly what to look out for as well. So providing that you've done the research before you take on the property on, there's no reason why it should fail. Failing that, one thing that you could do before you take on a property, you could get the HMO officer out on the property so that they can give you a rough indication what work needs to be done so that you can factor that into your costings before you do it. Okay, so Daya says, how many rooms did you do your first year, Arsh? I took on 23 properties in my first year. And I challenged myself. And it's very easily doable. And I targeted simply a lot of properties that were a lot of properties which were already HMOs. Okay, so Marion says, what kind of agreement do you use? We use a management agreement. We've also got a common law agreement. We've also got a lease agreement. It all depends on the landlord and the property and what kind of mortgage they've got on their property. So, we work on a different kind of, we work in accordance with the landlord, if that makes sense. So I kind of think that can you get rent to work on a standard buy-to-let? Absolutely, Carrie. Absolutely. For argument's sake, I've got a single let. So one of the first ones that I took on, which isn't always the best deal, I took on a 2-bed mid-terrace house, and originally I was going to run it as a 3-bed HMO, and it wouldn't work financially as a 3-bed HMO. But what we did is that we run it as a single let. So I'm paying the landlord £275 a month. I've got it rented out at £550, I believe, as a single let, just to a family running it as a 3-bed house. And as a result, I'm making £275 a month off a property on a single let. So it can work, and like I said, rent to rent doesn't always just have to be as a HMO basis. You could run it as a service accommodation, and we could go from there. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so Vanessa says, how can I find out the HMO regulations? It's available online. Absolutely. So all your local authorities will have all their terms of what they would consider in a HMO. What you'd consider your what the requirements is for a HMO in that location. I think it's called an amenity standards guide. So all you got to do, look in your location as to what they're after, and you can go from there. And that will give you some basic information to get you started. So guys, I suppose on that note, I'd like to thank you all very much for taking the time to learn how you can make a recurring property income without buying a house. I hope that you use these secrets to build a property business so that you too can decide if you want to quit your job. There will probably be some unanswered questions, and I apologise because then, it's a lot to get through within the space of 90 minutes. If you've got questions that are unanswered, feel free to give me a call. So you've got my mobile number there, or you've got my email address there. So it's arsh@arshellahi.com, or if you want to give me a call. And that's my personal mobile number. So there's not many people that will actually give you their personal mobile number. So if you want to have a chat, more than happy to do so. So Hugo says, do you still do the whole year course? So yes, that's called the Elite Property Tribe, and that's kicking off in February. And that's the reason probably why I don't do these one-day courses very often. So in that respect, Hugo, yeah, it is called the Elite Property Tribe. If you want to know more about that, you go to elitepropertytribe.co.uk. So guys, on that note, I wish you all a very lovely rest of the evening. Hopefully you have a productive and fantastic week ahead. If there are any questions, feel free to let me know, and let's see what we can do, and let's see how we can move you forward. But on that note, I wish you all the very best. I look forward to seeing a lot of you on the 20th and 21st of October 2018. Take care. Good night. God bless.